everyone, and welcome to this special Dorchester Library event. My name is Liz Petrocci, and I'm the co-chair of the Dorchester Library, along with Laura Adams, and we want to thank you for coming today. Before I introduce today's special guest, I want to remind the residents of Leisure Village that September is the 60th anniversary of Leisure Village, and there are several things planned for the celebration. We have a kickoff barbecue on September 2nd, singing under the stars on September 3rd, a craft fair on September 9th, a pool party on September 10th, casino night on September 16th, reading of the history of Leisure Village sponsored by the Dorchester Library on September 17th, Family Day on September 23rd, Tom's Music Showcase on September 24th, and New Wave Dance on September 30th. Please check your newsletters for details on costs and times. Thank you. Now, in the 1 year that John D'Amore has lived here, he's made his presence felt throughout our community. He's become a good friend to the library, having donated his 6 books, and has donated another book for the baskets to be raffled off on casino night. He also has become a close personal friend to Tom and I. So without further ado, please welcome Leisure Village's best-selling author and resident, John D'Amore.
And so no matter how many of these I do, I still need to read off paper because I just can't memorize all this stuff. So, good afternoon. I want to thank all of you for taking the time to be here, and most of all, that you're staying safe and healthy. I want to express my gratitude to Liz and Laura, who run the Dorchester Library, and for allowing me to entertain you today. It's also thanks to them that all 6 of my books are on the library shelves, which I'm absolutely honored to have there. I also want to thank Laurie Morrow and my cousin Diane for manning the sales table. Thank you very much. In my romantic comedy, As Long as I Have Lips, there is no mafia, no zombies, no mafia zombies, no vigilantes or honest attorneys showing up at someone's door to blow their brains out. There are no women wanting to give you a massage, and there are no time-traveling historical figures. What happened? Well, a lot of authors find a genre and stick with it. But had I done that, I would have been labeled a mob writer, simply because my first book, The Boss Always Sits in the Back, released in 2012, was a memoir of my family, our Italian heritage, my love of music, the people involved in a certain lifestyle, the details of a historic Las Vegas scam, explaining the region of New Jersey where my family lived from the late 1800s to the late 1990s, and its proximity to New York City. I'm certainly not complaining. The Boss sold very well, and it still does. But over the next few years, every reader of The Boss asked me, when will you write a follow-up? Some even demanded one. Having a slew of true stories left over from The Boss, I combined them into a horror comedy, resulting in the release of my second book, Dead Fellas, in 2017. I had no idea it would introduce me to a new audience of readers who knew there were that many mob zombie fans. In 2018, I released The Delivery Man, a vigilante murder mystery also based on true events, but with fictitious results. And again, readers around the world loved it, so who was I to bitch? As Long as I Have Lips was released in early 2020. I always wanted to write a story based on a conversation I had with a friend on the way to a depression glass auction. Plus, I wanted to write something about older women and the younger men in their lives. Due to the pandemic in March 2020, I was unable to tour to promote LIPS. So I became the first author to do Zoom readings to audiences that circled the globe. Not being on the road enabled me to write Rubdown in time for a Thanksgiving release of that same year. I then wrote Me and George and released it in February 2022. Now, as a resident of OLV, I'm writing my 7th book and hope to have it out by early 2024. So I hope you'll enjoy these sections of chapter 1 of As Long as I Have Lips as much as I certainly enjoyed writing them. Here we go. Time for another drink. You have tequila in here? Is this clear tequila?
No, vodka.
Can't do vodka. Chapter 1. Jeffrey Holland was on a mission. Working for a prestigious New York City advertising agency was all Jeffrey Holland ever wanted. It was his dream, it was his goal, and he attained it at 24. New York City's weather on Monday, May 6, 2019, was exceptionally pleasant. It had rained all weekend, so as Jeffrey stepped from the R train and up the concrete steps 2 at a time from the 7th Avenue and West 57th Street subway station, the air at 8:42 a.m. was fresh and clean. Well, by Manhattan standards. Jeffrey loved his job so much that in the 5 months since leaving Montana and moving to the city, he never cared what the weather conditions were. Dressed in one of his neatly pressed suits, Jeffrey carried a soft leather briefcase via a strap over his right shoulder as he made his way through the normal hustle and bustle of a weekday morning. Similarly clad male and female junior executives carried briefcases, wore backpacks, sipped lattes or guzzled coffees, listened to whatever audio app they subscribed to with the tiniest of ear pads, and talked or texted into phones as they scurried in every direction to be at their desks by 9 a.m. Jeffrey often varied his path from the subway station to his junior executive office on the 44th floor of the Time Warner Center's South Tower. In reality, the building itself wasn't important to Jeffrey. He was hired shortly after the beginning of the year by Arthur O'Connell and Rupert, a stalwart advertising agency on Madison Avenue since 1973, and they relocated to the South Tower in 2003. Today, the handsome 5'8", Rocky Mountain, homegrown junior executive was a little rushed, so he took the direct route. His stride made it easy for all to see that Jeffrey was on a mission. He wasn't looking up at the skyscrapers as he normally would, nor did he admire the women that walked toward him, not even the ones that smiled. Cars, trucks, buses, taxis, and messengers on bicycles passed without Jeffrey giving them a second thought. Somewhere on 58th Street between Broadway and 8th Avenue, he took out his phone, tapped a pre-programmed number, and started talking as soon as he heard a voice. "Okay, I'm above ground. Please continue with what you were saying. Are you sure they dumped Carter and Brown?" "Yes, sir," replied Rekha Vajpayee, Jeffrey's 32-year-old Hindi-accented assistant assigned to him when he got the job. She came with a downtown Manhattan attitude along with its sense of humor and lexicon, and often blurted out the unexpected. "Their contract runs out at midnight tonight, and Divine's owner told CB she's not renewing. Jeffrey interrupted. "CB? Carter and Brown," she answered, and tried to hold back some laughter. "Anyway, they're keeping it quiet. My friend said he wasn't supposed to tell me, but the power of a few drinks and some cleavage has an amazing effect on a lot of men's ability to keep a secret." "That's another reason why I don't drink," Jeffrey replied, embarrassed about hearing embarrassed by hearing about his assistant's cleavage. Knowing her openness had embarrassed him, Reka resumed the conversation with, what do you want to do about this, Mr. Holland? With all the confidence in the world, Jeffrey commanded, I want the divine account. Within seconds of hanging up, Jeffrey approached the bus stop enclosure on the corner of 8th Avenue, displaying several advertisements. It was the one depicting a model applying red lipstick with the bold red lettered slogan, Divine Cosmetics, like kissing a fantasy, that made him smile and walk faster. Jeffrey was proud that he had learned the advertising industry's history in New York City. No one could ever deny that the borough of Manhattan was the birthplace of the advertising industry, which became known by the island's multi-lane artery that runs from 23rd Street to 142nd Street along the city's grid, and named for America's fourth president, James Madison. As the number of the nation's newspapers increased in the second half of the 1800s, especially with several dailies in New York City alone, the need for slogan factories proliferated, causing the industry of advertising to blossom. During the 20th century's first quarter, as early skyscrapers made their way uptown, the pioneering advertising agencies claimed the avenue as their territory and made the term Madison Avenue synonymous with the industry. It began with the promotions of local events and products, then precipitously grew into national print and radio ads. Every housewife wanted to know what to buy as she listened to the magic box in the living room, and the mighty men of the advertising industry were happy to supply her with commercials ranging from the cigarettes her husband wanted to smoke and the shirts he needed to wear to the soap she'd need to wash the kids and their clothes. One product ad agencies determined sold best with the stay-at-home demographic was soap. Soap by every manufacturer of every variety and for every use, as long as they could pay the agency's fees and the broadcaster's rates. The result spawned the never-ending stream of advertisements on radio and television shows that gave birth to its own genre, the daytime soap opera. 30-minute serialized dramas each happy homemaker could relate to while her husband was at work, their kids were in school, the clothes were drying outside on the line, and every 8.5 minutes there would be a 120-second set of 4 commercials telling her everything she needed to put on the household shopping list. And she immediately did it. But it was when the wonderful world of television erupted across North America in the early 1950s that Madison Avenue became the road paved with gold. It wasn't long before America's population became obsessed and looked forward to commercials showcasing the new car models released every September for the following year. In 1955, the Volkswagen Beetle was introduced to America for $1,050, and Cadillac sold its convertible Coupe de Ville for $4,400. The country's new highway system was crisscrossing the continent as consumers were told by song to see the USA in natural succession. The next fad to inundate the public were the endless miles of billboards that peppered the highways, freeways, parkways, and turnpikes. Burma Shave, Howard Johnson, Stuckey's, Dairy Queen, there were thousands of them, whether nationally known companies or local mom and pop diners. Each was designed to entertain, inform, and entice every vehicle's occupants as they cruised by at 60 miles an hour. This was all in conjunction with endless TV, radio, and print ads for gasoline companies whose neatly uniformed, cap-wearing, always smiling Caucasian attendant would check the air in your tires, the oil in your engine, and clean your windshield while filling the car's tank with fuel at 29 cents a gallon, all sucked from the ground and processed from the oil fields of America. By the 1960s, fashion, music, alcohol, film, and tobacco companies had realized that by spending a couple of $1 million to promote their products, it would result in a rapid return in the hundreds of millions. It didn't take long for political parties to realize the value of having Madison Avenue work for them. From images of candidates' wholesome, God-worshiping, clean-cut family to nuclear devastation, advertising was to become the primary factor in determining election outcomes. By the 1970s, cars, beer cans, liquor bottles, airlines, cereal boxes, fashion, soup cans, remote and exotic vacation locations, everything was appearing as subliminal product placement in TV shows and feature films. Everything America saw, heard, smelled, ate, drank, voted for, cleaned with, smoked, read, traveled to, wore or drove, had Madison Avenue's hands in it. There was no limit to what they could or would promote. Early in the game, the advertising boys found one essential factor to be more effective than anything else in selling whatever product they were contracted to publicize, and they never stopped using it. If anything, they consistently improved on the endless ways to exploit it. Sex. Sex sells. Beginning in the 1950s, the more an advertisement showed attractive, enticing women exposing skin or cooing a double entendre, or a dashing, well-dressed man smoking a pipe and holding a martini as he stood next to his new home and car, the more that product sold and stayed in the minds of the consumer. Men wanted the women in the ad, and women wanted to be the woman in the ad. At least that's what was being put into the minds of the public. There was no stopping Madison Avenue, and the bigger the industry became, the more money flowed into its agency's coffers and the coffers of its clients. That was all that mattered. Then came the digital age of the early 1990s, and things began to change drastically. The age, race, and sex of the up-and-comers went through a transformation. Madison Avenue had always been a straight white man's domain where college graduates would spend several years in apprenticeship under an agency's elders before being allowed to present a campaign to a client. Suddenly, men and women in their 20s of all cultures and sexual orientations were looked to for the slogans and campaigns that would lead the industry into the next century. In addition, unlike the old school crew, this new generation knew how to work in the embryonic and rapidly growing world of computer technology and the internet. It wasn't long before the memories of 3 martini lunches in the Oak Bar at the Plaza Hotel were all that remained of the once ruling agencies of Madison Avenue. The companies that didn't merge or go out of business were absorbed by conglomerates and relocated into home offices across the country or to another continent entirely. For some reason, the rents of Madison Avenue were their demise. So they moved downtown into the trendy, regentrified, and less expensive buildings of Tribeca, the West Village, and the Flatiron District. A few of the older agencies enlisted young talent and relocated into the new addresses of Midtown Manhattan, such as the majestic twin-towered 55-floor Time Warner Center erected on the 4.5-acre site of the famous New York Coliseum. Time Warner Center opened its doors for business in 2003, which resulted in a few longtime Madison Avenue agencies to quickly move in. Arthur O'Connell and Rupert was one of them, and Jeffrey had made it to those offices despite his unlikely background with those he now worked alongside. In the back seat of a 6-passenger white stretch crawling along Fifth Avenue sat Whitney Quinn. Whitney didn't merely look like she was born to sit in the back of a limo, but 33 years earlier, she was born in the back of one. The commotion of those crossing the street distracted her, especially once she noticed they were women, and only women. Women of every age, ethnicity, shape, size, and wardrobe were all heading to the same place, Bergdorf Goodman, one of Fifth Avenue's upscale stores that catered to the rich and the very rich. Television trucks from the usual networks and New York City stations were parked at the entrance with camera crews filming the feminine influx. Something was going on. It rarely took more than 20 minutes of normal city traffic to get to Whitney's office, though today it would take longer, a little longer, and there was nothing she could do but leave it to the man who had been her personal driver for the last 8 years. She sat back to enjoy the ride and wondered what was going on at Bergdorf's. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that. Please, save it to the end. Anyway, thank you. I hope you enjoyed that, and now I'm happy to answer your questions. And also, if you're interested in, I mean, I've said this hundreds of times, and I still have to read this. Also, if you're interested in purchasing any of my books and want them signed, please see Laura and Diane. There's special discounted prices on multiple books. Remember, reading is a great way to enjoy your time, and my books make great presents. So, that's it for the commercials. I want to thank you again for being here. And now your questions. Okay, go ahead. Yes, sir.
You're going to have audio books?
I have, The Boss is an audio book. To be honest with you, when you're a self-published author, the cost of making an audio book, even if I did it myself, just studio time, editing it, and based on the amount of books that get sold compared to e-books or print books, it's not real cost effective. Of course, if I find an investor who wants to throw out 10 or 15 grand, I'm happy to make you a partner in that. So anybody else? Yeah. I would love to have a movie come out. Yes, ma'am.
How did you research all the history on the advertising development? That's really cool. Each decade, because I'm older.
When I first thought about this story, it was before the internet.
Yeah.
And there actually was a thing called Madison Avenue, where the advertising agencies were. When I started writing this book and found out, what, they're not there anymore, it meant having to look up all of this. And as I do with all of my books, even though The Boss is a memoir, a nonfiction, all the other books are fiction. And I don't care about that. I try to get as much realism as possible. If you're going to talk about dates, talk about historic things that are going on around that date, so that the average reader can relate to a story, not just my story. There you go. So I like researching too.
Very nice.
Makes me intelligent, or appear that way at least. Yes, sir. Yes? Oh, okay. Go ahead, hon.
I noticed a hint of cynicism in the whole narrative
Me, cynical? You know, I get, as an author who's writing for really my own pleasure than anybody else's, I find a lot of my characters are cynical, sarcastic, have a Jersey attitude, that don't give a shit attitude.
But this guy's from Montana.
Yeah, but Whitney is not. You'll get there. So anybody else? Any other questions? Yeah, hon.
Excuse me. Have you thought of writing a book? I know there's a series from England about a place like ours, Leisure Village, as a background.
No. Because I want to continue to live here. There you go. No. But it's a good question, but no. Anybody else? Go ahead. Come on. Really? This is great. I love it.
Well, what was happening when Whitney couldn't get there? What was happening there? I had to read it.
Right over there.
Gotta go over there.
Right over there.
Is your next book science fiction?
Yes, my next book is 100% science fiction. I've never written a science fiction book before, so. I swear to you. Me and George, I see more as a historical fantasy. The fact that he travels through time, that's it. It's not really science fiction. It's not even, it's more comedy, you know. Do I have my who? The Lincolns? No, they went. They were old. It was like, one was a 90-40, other was a 97 or something. And I was Italian from New Jersey. I had to write the Lincolns. That happened. Okay, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I'm curious, how did you get the book sold? How did you manage to sell the book?
How did I sell them, you mean to the public?
Yeah.
Okay. Being a musician, as I was, see, back, you'll remember, back when you would go out to clubs and stuff like that, there was no such thing as the internet. There was no such thing as the internet. If you wanted to have people come to see you, for those of you who grew up in New Jersey, maybe northern New Jersey, there was newspapers like the Aquarian, if you remember that, and some other really good papers that you could just get to see who?
East Coast Rocker.
East Coast Rocker, that's right. You just get these newspapers and it said where your band was playing. But, you know, the old game, what was it called? Telephone. You called up 10 people and, you know, who you knew liked your band, and you said, yeah, we're playing down in Riptide in Point Pleasant this week. Come see us. And you hope that they told 10 of their friends and that's how you did it. So I always, and as you can see, I don't have a problem standing up in front of people talking, and that came from, as being a musician, I played my first high school dances when I was 14 for these people here at the Plaza Arena and the high school dances and the CYO dances. And so I never had a problem standing up in front of or promoting things, because my bands, you had to promote the bands back then. That was that. The corporate world, no, but maybe that's what helped me in the corporate world, because I had that ability to get out there and generate more business. So that was good. And then, so when it came time to selling myself, there's no product I know better. You know, I can bullshit about me better than anybody can. And that's what you have to do. That's half of it. The other half is you have to have a really good product. You can't sell a product if it's not good. And fortunately, I think everybody who's read, obviously the people who've read my books, like them. Thank you. Okay, on that note, I should leave this. So I'm going to sit here and sign books for anybody who wants to buy them. And thank you for those of you who already have them.
presents early. And on December 9th, the library is going to be having their usual annual open house with music and food